Good evening. It's John Celestri, John the Animator Guy. I'd like to talk to all of you and thank you for coming in and talking about, well, we're going to talk about angels. But before we start talking about angels with dirty faces, tell you a little bit about myself. I've been an animator for 45 years. I've animated Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special. I was on Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, He-Man and She-Ra, and Rock and Rule. Did a number of, I was on at Filmation, worked at Nest, where we did a lot of direct-to-home videos, and a lot of family material, and also commercials. I did the Batman commercials of Zelda's. So anyway, but that's a little bit about me. I've got some guests here tonight. We've got the Dastardly Dingoes. We got Brian, Jeremy, and Chad. But anyway, first I'm going to just tell you and just go run my video about what my Kickstarter is Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. And here we go. Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. The adventures of Michael, an innocent angel who is unjustly banished to the mortal realm and battles to survive amongst demons, sinners, and living dead. And I will have the link to my Kickstarter, as well as the Dastardly Dingoes, all that information that you can link up to, or at least copy and paste in the description below. So without further ado, we've got the Dastardly Dingoes, Brian, Jeremy, and Chad. Say hello to the boys and girls.
How's it going?
Hello, hello.
Oh, well, you've muted yourself, Brian.
Oh, Brian.
Hi, boys and girls. How are you?
Brian.
Sorry, rookie mistake, man.
Oh, let's restart the show.
All right, let's do it.
No. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I don't have the technical ability.
It's just stuff, Brian.
Okay, so we got three desperados right now. And they're over in Louisville on the other side of the Bluegrass Parkway from Lexington, right, where I live. Mm-hmm. So it's really a bunch of Kentucky Colonels here.
That's right.
So,
for sure.
So here we are, and we'll start. Who's the first one that wants to raise their hand and start talking about yourselves?
I think Brian should go.
All right, I'll go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. I am Brian Rodman. I am the writer and illustrator of the horror fantasy series Memoirs of an Angel. And I have a Kickstarter right now for issue 7 of the series. So if you go, let's see if I can do this here. Go right here. And that will take you directly to the Kickstarter page. Check us out. See what you want to buy, and also you can just go to brianrodman.com, and all my social media stuff is there. I'm also 1/3 of the Dastardly Dingoes podcast.
That's right.
Next,
Chad.
All right, I'll go. I'm Chad Nuss. I am the creator, author, and artist of the science fiction comic book series called The Silence, and there's a picture of issue number 1. And I'm also just like to draw in general and do a lot of other work, working on a couple murals, couple paintings, and just some other awesome stuff. And I'm also 1/3 of the Dastardly Dingoes. And you can find all my stuff on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Those are the main places. And then I have a website, thesilencecomics.com as well.
tell us about your wall of humility behind you.
Yeah, so the wall behind me is a shrine to myself and my artistic abilities. Actually, all joking aside, it's my drawings from issue number 1. And so in our house that we moved in, I was able to negotiate having an office, and so I was able to use the wall space to put up the pages from the first book. So, and it's a good self promotion. So every time I come on, people can see the book behind me. So,
Yep. I'm Jeremy. I am 7/8 of the Dastardly Dingoes. No, I'm the editor and producer of the show. We've got 3 shows. The drawing show, which is features Brian and Chad and other friends coming on, doing live drawings and just chatting while they do that. Then we have Indie View, which is a show that Chad does every month. He gets 20 indie comics and he reviews them and rates them. And then he also has a running list each month, of the top 20 of the year. And then we've got the original podcast, Dastardly Dingoes podcast. That is, we feature indie creators and talk to them about the projects that they have going on, whether, it's Kickstarters or, things like that. I also am a freelance editor, graphic designer, general YouTube guru, and I like to. My business is called Indie Power Up, and I work with indie creators to develop videos or other assets that they can use for Kickstarter campaigns, promotions on their website or social media or anything like that. That's kind of my passion. I am not a comic book artist, but I love helping comic book artists or authors or other indie creators promote their stuff. It's kind of selfish at the same time. I just get so excited when I see good work. I just kind of want to go tell people about it, and that's what I do naturally. So I was like, I'll just make that my job. And so that's what I do.
Yeah, and Jeremy has actually done all of my Kickstarter videos. He's done a promo for Chad's comic as well. So he's pretty talented.
Yeah, and we just actually a couple hours ago released our latest episode for the Dastardly Dingoes. It's a movie review of the movie Tenet. So that movie is incredible. I think our video is incredible. I will put a link in the comments for you to go watch it, and I think you should because it was a lot of fun. The end.
Well, that's great. Okay, guys. Okay, so we got the lineup here, and so let's go and. Brian, you want to do your angel first, or Chad, you want to do your angel first?
Brian does.
I was going to say, I think since I went first in the introductions, Chad, it's only fair.
It's only fair that I go first.
Yes, now.
Okay, I'll go first. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. My project is much better than Brian's, and
it's the best for sure.
It's the best. I'm the other 8th of the Dastardly Dingoes, beside Jeremy's 7/8. But either way,
you guys split the final 8.
Yeah, it's all. We just show up and talk. That's all.
That's right. That's right. So I kind of have two main projects involving angels. One of them is I'm doing a mural, a hand-drawn mural. It's 11 foot by 4 foot, and drawn with a mechanical pencil, which sounds insane. It is, with immense amounts of detail, and it basically just is a map of. Am I frozen? Someone frozen?
You were.
Am I good?
You did freeze.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm back now.
There you go.
So I'm just keeping you in suspense. So, so I'm working on a mural. hand-drawn mural that basically outlines, it's taken from the book of Revelation from the Bible, and talks a lot about angels and kind of their ranking and relationship to our world and that kind of thing. So it's a pretty early on, so I still have a lot to work on it, but a large portion of it will be filled with angels. So a lot of thinking through that, what that means, not only just like from a theological point of view, but also from our point of view and how angels interact with us and that kind of thing. The second big project that I'm working on is my comic book called The Silence, which is, as I said before, a sci-fi kind of epic story. And angels will be in that story more metaphorically. So there'll be certain characters that are angelic in the sense that that's who they represent. They're not going to look like angels. Like, you're not going to look at them. They're going to have wings and, you know, the traditional thought of angels. Whereas in the mural I have, the angels are a little more traditional in that sense, that they look human with wings. Some of them will not. So I'll have in Isaiah, there's the 4 living creatures, which are angelic beings, and they're described as having 4 faces and wings and that kind of thing. So I'll draw those out, whereas the other angels will look more human with wings and that kind of thing. But in the comic book, there'll be more like characters that are representative of what angels are and do and that kind of thing. But that will be later on. They don't show up in the first issue. That'll be on issues later on in the story. So,
Okay,
Sweet.
Brian.
All right. Well, my angel story is so much better than Chad's, it is actually, it's a horror fantasy comic book series about a ragtag group of infinite and finite beings who race through time and space to rescue a broken and bitter witch hunter from the clutches of the Dark Kingdom. So, and now that I've given you the elevator pitch,
I was going to say that sounded very smooth.
Yes,
that was good.
Thank you. Yes, I've been in practice. I have a Kickstarter going right now, so I've been saying that and typing it every single day. Constructing just a lengthy story, just about the unseen realm. It's not just necessarily about angels. It dives deep into to biblical theology and doctrine, but it's not preachy. That's not necessarily the focus. It's more so just really about telling a good story. And there's a lot of different themes that come in and out of it as it features the Elohim, the angelic beings that are in the unseen realm, that are moving in and out of the physical realm. And, like you ask questions like certain things happen in your life. Like, that's odd. Why did this happen this way? Well, there's a whole nother world out there that you don't see. Right. And that's what this comic is about, is how does that interact with the physical world? How do they interact together? And what does it actually look like in the unseen realm as a war is going on constantly, and how does that how does that interact with our world? And I really took a lot of different imagery from the Bible, from lore about angels. They're humanoid-ish. Some of them are just crazy winged creatures with eyes that you find a lot in the Bible. But most of them are very animalistic as well. I dig monster movies. I love monster movies. Grew up on the old Universal black and white monster movies, and have just been a fan of the horror genre ever since. So I really wanted to pull that, because every time you see an angel in the Bible, somebody's terrified.
Mm-hmm.
They hit the floor. They're terrified, and you see angels in pop culture and media and movies and TV shows where they're these, majestic, sparkly people with wings. And it's just like, that's not what I'm reading here. And that's not what I'm seeing in different cultures' lore, and specifically the Bible and the Christian mythos that I've come to believe that's not what I'm seeing. So I really wanted to reflect that in this series. And I also really wanted to reflect the darker side of the unseen realm well. I didn't want to water down the demonic side of the Elohim. I didn't want to I wanted to really throw it in your face,
Mhm.
bring you a clear, awful, disgusting picture of evil. So that way the angelic heroes, when they show up, they're that much more powerful to you. So yeah, and that's it all takes place over a course of 4 books that I'll be doing. And right now we're on book 1, we're on volume 2.
Okay. Well, okay. As you can tell, I gave my little 30-second video at the beginning. Bloodwing Angel Chronicles, for me, something I started as a novella back in 2013. I published it at a very dark time. I mean, I was going through a lot of stuff. So I was thinking about I was really Job in the book of Job.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was being, smashed all over the place. So I took my frustrations and explored it into being Michael, Mychal, the Bloodwing Angel, and I created I'd already studied a lot of stuff. I grew up as a Jesuit Catholic, back in the day. So it goes back, pre John the 23rd.
Yeah.
So I grew up, as a Catholic in the 50s and in the 60s, and the thing about it is that I was reading, the Bible, rather the book of Job, and saying, okay, I feel like they're playing a game with me. Satan and God, they're wagering on me, and I'm a pawn in this game.
Yeah.
So I put all of that into the element of the most innocent angel is plucked out of the choir, however you want to call it, and is hurled. Has no chance, doesn't know what's going on, has no reason, hasn't a clue as to why, and no reason as to why, has been taken away and thrown away from safety. And in this thing, in the aspect of it being hurled all across the universe, and in a blink of an eye, and in doing that, a promise to the angel, a promise was broken as to, if you follow me, if you obey me, I will keep you safe. And that rips apart the universe momentarily and then restitches it back in a different way. It doesn't.
That's cool.
And so therefore, Michael lands is just into the world, and then is transformed into a semi-mortal and taking on the physical attributes of both male and female. Because if you look at the Bible, when they're inhuman, they say they're beautiful creatures, and you don't know whether they are male or female. So therefore, an angel, how can it be? How can you don't, in my interpretation, there is no Papa Angel and Mama Angel and a little cherub angel.
Right, yeah.
It's like, okay, so therefore I've placed this in a situation where it allows me to explore what happens to an innocent with powers, but no longer understands what is true, what is good, what is evil in this new world, because this has all because of the what's the word, not being lied to, but being in a situation now where they can no longer lost the trust of God, so this character is now in this world, and I populate this character because everything has changed. People then go on and explain, and so I wrote a legend, which goes in the first book and explains that all creatures are angels. They go they go through different mutations. Sometimes they're angels. Sometimes they go through animals. They go through humans. Sometimes if they're going back and forth, they become demons. If not, they go through again. It's a back and forth. It's a never-ending situation. So you have animals who have the spirits of angels, and sometimes you come back as a male. You come times as a human female. It's an never-ending back and forth. And that's one of the things that I'm putting. I laid as the foundation for all of this. This allows me then, as a comic book artist, have speaking with animals, speaking with other demons, dealing with all of this with human beings, and people not understanding what they have within themselves. So, and it all takes place in a version of Brooklyn where I grew up, and so I have all of these characters in there. All these humans who are walled off from, to protect themselves from all the demons that are outside their walls.
Interesting.
So you have this whole thing where because the universe was rented and stitched back, hundreds of years have gone by just in the flick of an eye, and all of these societies are isolated from each other. It's like Italian villages. During the 1400s, you have different languages and but they are all away from. They do not go and can communicate with each other, so they have their own, societies. So anyway, this is Brooklyn. This is Bensonhurst, and this has gangsters. You've got all I grew in my neighborhood. My parents had a Catholic shop, and so. Okay, so from my personal experience, I know what it was like, going to the various churches. You'd have, they would sell, chalices, ciboriums, priesthood vestments, things of that sort. You make them plus, gifts and things of that sort, crosses, all kinds of things, and dealing with the churches and such. Well, what happened is in this world. Everything is allowed. So they're selling not just chalices and ciboriums, but next to fertility idols and also sacrificial blades, because human sacrifice is also part of that. And across the street from them, as was in my neighborhood, is the 1717 Club, which is where all the mobsters in Brooklyn, in my neighborhood, actually went. And they'd come by and then pop by chalices and ciboriums to bring to the churches. So we have this dynamic going back and forth as part of about the neighborhood. But that is where my angels with dirty faces come into play.
Gotcha. So that's a very interesting take on everything. I backed your Kickstarter, and I'm so excited to actually read the story. I just the premise of it when you were on JD's show, I dug it. So I was like, I'm going to check this out. But now after you've gone into it a little bit more, I'm more excited. It just sounds very interesting. So you're obviously mostly steeped in Catholicism and that lore with your angels. What else did you bring to the table with that?
Well, it's also being a lapsed Catholic and seeing how the rest of the world. I was grammar school, high school, university, because I went to parochial school, went to a Jesuit military school in Manhattan, in New York, and then that's during the 60s, and then I went to Fordham University. So there, and then my reading. I've always been reading continually, but I said, okay, I decided there were too many issues for me within the way the Catholic hierarchy would deal with issues and what have you. So I stopped when I was about 19. So you're talking about 1968. Yeah. But my folks still continued going to church. They were still all about, being part of that society. But what I'm bringing in is studying as there was a period of time in Cincinnati where my wife and I went to evangelical free churches, and Presbyterian churches. So I got to see Bibles. I went to a lot of Bible studies for about 4 or 5 years. So we went to churches and their take on things, where I find, and I took away from that there is a lot of fear. And again, this is my thing. What I objected, or not object, but what I observed is that a lot of religious adherence is fear of the unknown.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what I'm bringing from that. Cincinnati is extremely conservative. When we were there it was 1990 through 2008.
Okay.
And so that Hamilton County, it was one of the most conservative areas in the country. And so we were at, as I said, evangelical Bible studies. I don't know how many times, Revelations, that was one of a major book.
Yeah.
So when you went, did you go through all the maps and everything and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
they did. Yeah. And giving you the color, color this line with red.
Oh, yes.
Color this, and you go, okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
But once again, being someone that is not going to take just somebody's word for it, I'll see what's going on. I mean, the adherence of Christianity is still do unto others as you want them to do unto you, and kindness, and so that was, and the Jesuits were the aspect for me, but there was an intellectual curiosity. Intellectual curiosity does not stop just because you believe in something. You're not, I don't take things literally.
Right. Yeah, I mean, being a natural skeptic is that's an important thing. It helps you decide, it helps you decide each situation in life, like what is real and what is fake, or what is good and what is bad. So yeah, I mean, I think that natural skepticism is important to have.
Yeah, I think for me, like it's funny, when I was 19, I went through a similar kind of I grew up in the church, and I grew up in Southern Baptist church, and here in Louisville, Kentucky. And when I went to college, it was the first time that I had heard someone who I knew was much, much smarter than me telling me that everything that I was raised to believe was not true. And I was like, what in the world? So that natural skepticism just kicked in at that moment. And I was like, okay, if this isn't true, I need to find out. So it was just a constant research of what is Christianity? Why do we do the things that we do? What is this? What is this? Is this actually what the Bible says? That was a big question that I asked so much is this actually what the Bible says? And so just years of just picking through that. And that's how I ended up at Bible college. Was I felt like, there were others like me who were asking these questions, and I wanted to help them find the answers. And so I wanted to go into vocational ministry to do so, just to learn, apologetics really well, to really understand what truth is and what it was.
Whoop.
Oh,
Brian just hicked up. He just hicked up.
You're back, though.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey,
All right.
What is truth? And
and that's it. That's all, folks.
That's it. There you go.
You got to restart the show now.
No, so yeah, I was on that journey too. And I really just soaked up as much information as I could, and that's really when Memoirs of an Angel started really growing, because I've loved comics my whole life. I loved animation my whole life. I grew up on stuff that you did, John, and that you worked on. And so, that stuff really inspired me. And I really wanted to I really wanted to take what I've learned, and like I said before, when I was going in to be a pastor, I realized that's not the direction I want to go in. I want to be a storyteller, and I want to tell people this information that I have found through storytelling. And to me, comic books and animation were the way to go way to do it. And I was not knowledgeable enough, nor did I have enough money to do animation, or patience for that matter. So I decided, hey, I'll do this in comics.
Great.
And yeah, so, but I think you really struck a chord with, just the why stories mean so much to us is it's personal, right? Like you discuss, just discussing your journey, going through the church and all that stuff. I mean, your story is so personal, but yet you have taken all these things you've been through.
Yes, and put it into that. Let's see. Let's fill in the line for him.
You froze again, Brian. Unfortunately.
Oh no.
Yeah, sorry. You just.
Man. All right.
It's. Do you want to kick back in or what have you, or we'll just keep on going?
We'll just keep going.
Okay.
Nothing he says is very important.
No, it's not that important. Yeah, I just ramble, and eventually Jeremy just edits me out.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll just do like you said, John. We'll just fill in the words once he stops.
Yeah. That's right. There you go.
It'll be a good game that we've got going.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting. Comics is a young person's game, so to speak, but yet story writing only really kicks in after you have enough material and experience to be actually be able to do something. But yet comics does not seem to relish mature storytelling. Is that?
I can see what you're saying.
Am I just missing out on something, or am I correct in some way?
I think in some way you are. Jeremy, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, if you think about the typical like comic book fan, you get the idea that, there are a lot of man children comic book fans. You know what I mean? And I think that maybe that the draw of like mainstream comics into that fantasy world sometimes can stunt emotional maturity. If like nothing is real, then you don't really have to like learn how to live in the real world.
Essentially, it's pure escapism. Essentially, is what you're saying. You're not looking for a story that you can learn from and work with. You actually just want to just be entertained and don't worry about anything.
Yeah. Well, and that's obviously not like. I'm not saying that that's every comic book fan. Obviously, I don't want to the entire world, but I think by and large you can make that observation.
But I think if with storytelling, it's how entertaining you can be to get across an important point. I mean, if you just work with finding out what the universal truth of your story is, then you can relate to the reader, because you'll be able to relate on all aspects. But then a lot of times you have to have the structure and understanding of how to tell a story. And being a comic strip artist, which is what I wanted to be, you had to do both kinds of things. You had to know how to tell a story, and that as well, and also how to actually draw it, in a convincing way. Yeah. Chad, I've left you out. Come on.
I was like, Chad's down there pondering something just intellectually amazing, I'm sure.
Well, I was just enjoying all what you all said. It was really good. I mean, a couple thoughts I had was you had about when you went to the Bible studies and things like that, how much fear there is. And one of the things my wife and I talk a lot about is she often says, like, she wants to be very careful that she doesn't believe in God just because she doesn't want to go to hell. It's not driven by fear. It's got to be driven more by worship and by, your love for God than anything else. And I think that is a real temptation, is not only that for yourself, but then also that translates into becoming judgmental towards others, because you're always driven by that fear of God, or fear of hell, or fear of judgment, or whatever it is. But so I thought it was very interesting. That was your observation, because I've noticed that as well. And that really, a vibrant religion, or a vibrant spirituality, or however you want to say it, really comes back to your love for God, because then that translates in your love and compassion for other people. And I think people can really see that if it's real in your life. For me, I didn't become religious or become a Christian until I was an adult. I didn't grow up in church or anything like that. And my dad had passed away as an atheist. So it forced me to ask a lot of questions that I had never asked up until that point. And there's a theologian writer named Francis Schaeffer that was really helpful for me, because he showed that Christianity, or religion in general, is not just a belief, it's a worldview, and there's a whole structure behind it in which you see the world. And that was extremely helpful for me. And that's how I write stories and think about stories, and really think about life in general, as I'm trying to process things that are going on in the world. And even interacting with people that may disagree with me or have a different point of view, it's good to understand it from a worldview aspect, because then you can understand that someone else is coming to a certain conclusion because they have a worldview that's informing that. And it's the same with me. When you have that, then that gives you a lot of freedom to interact with people you disagree with without it becoming a shouting match, where it's more like, okay, I see where you're coming from. I disagree, and this is why, because my worldview leads me to this type of conclusion. So I was just thinking about all that as you guys were talking, and I appreciated Brian's transition to storytelling, because that's very important for me as well when it comes to telling a story. And John, you were saying as well about how important a story is for a comic book. It all ties in together. I think the best comic books are the ones with the deepest, most multi-layered stories. And those are the ones that are going to far surpass the ones that are just out there for entertainment value. Right. The ones that are out there for entertainment value will be, huge hits today, but when it comes to 50 years down the road, you'll forget about them. And instead you'll be referring back to the Kirby's and all the ones that did the original comics that are so good. I think there are a few today that do that have complex storylines and worldview and layers and character development, that kind of thing. But it is rare. The majority of them are relying on the look or a specific selling point or whatever it is. I think of two examples. I think of the comic books of the 90s. So much of what they were doing was relying on the visual, because it was such an exciting time to experiment with the comic book format at the neglect sometimes of the story. You're just opening this thing to see what's the next huge 2-page spread, and who's the next big artist.
Every page was a splash page.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's a time and place for that, obviously, but when you're doing that all the time at the expense of story, it's not a good thing. So I thought about that, and honestly, I forgot what my second point was going to be.
Well, all of that, Chad, was already profound enough. So
thank you
for the rest of
it. Let me finish. I did remember the second point. I was going to say. There was recently, I've noticed, especially with indie comics, they've gotten back into variant covers, which was a flashback to the 90s. Yeah. And there was one in particular, and I'm not going to trash it right now, but there was one that came out that I bought because one of the variant covers was awesome, and the art was pretty good, but the story was horrible. And it just was one of those where I was like, do what?
It was Brian's, wasn't it?
It was Memoirs of an Angel. I don't know if you've heard of it before. No, just kidding.
Absolute trash.
Yeah. Yes. So fluffy. So, but I just kind of laughed to myself, because I'm like, you're relying on an old school selling technique to get this book out there, and you're not relying on a good story. And to your point, John, I think story is vital to a comic book.
Yeah, I think with story, but once again, it does take a lot. I mean, between the times I was doing it's a long, arduous journey to learn all, at least just to become proficient in either drawing or in storytelling. For example, it took me 5 years from the time I started as an animator to the time I'm doing. I'm at Nelvana doing Rock and Rule, and then going on to doing Dragon Slayer and Space Ace. So I'm self-taught as an artist. So going from that point to that point, 5 years is when you start. 5 years is where you learn all the technical stuff, and you get your technique on your hand. But then the next 5 years is spent refining.
Yeah.
And so it's really not until you're 10, in your 10th year of doing it on a daily basis, and for pay, having to please somebody else other than yourself. That's the hardest thing to do, and that is to please someone who's paying you and saying you are worth the dollar I paid for that.
Right.
That's really hard. So so that's a difficult thing. So we go through that in the 90s, in the middle of 95. I was working from 90 to 99, 2000. Working for a company called Nest, or Rich Animation Studios, and we did a whole bunch of stories from the Old Testament and Bible, and and American history. We did a whole bunch of stuff. Swan Princess, all of that sort of thing. But while in the middle of all that, my wife and I started writing crime fiction novels and self-publishing that. And we would start doing that in the middle of the night. So after I finished a full day, we would go and write together.
That's fun. That's cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to say, if you have somebody who is, we fought over every word almost. So we've been together since 1980.
Oh, congratulations! Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we lived through that. So that's already. But we did crime fiction novels, not just cozies, but we also did you're Kentuckians. You know about Newport of the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gangsters and all that. That's what we wrote about. We wrote stories. Well, the first 3 novels, mysteries we did was on Cincinnati's side of the Ohio, and that was about a Cincinnati chili heiress. Maybe I know Gold Star Chili or Skyline. Chili.
Skyline Chili.
She was a caterer, and so we had her family did that. They owned that company. So we did. So it was kind of a cozy thing. So we had all kinds of stuff about the local material. What was going on with the local characters and whatnot. But then her relative, we find out, is that he was back in the day a gangster in Newport, Kentucky during the casino times. That's when I started digging into that. So we did two very hard crime fiction historical novels.
Nice.
Crime fiction novels based on that. So we did that for 5 years. We did 5 novels all together and whatnot. But learning how to write is, again, pleasing people and them being willing to buy your stuff.
Yeah.
And that is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
That is what we need. And so you really have to bring all, as an independent, I'm not talking about independent comic creators, you have to be able to do both.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
That's difficult. I think that there's a good balance there, because I do think that the variant cover situation, in some instances, like that type of direction for your business, is getting a little out of hand. I know there's an issue 1 of a comic that I have it's an indie comic. It's a great indie comic. I love it. I have it, and they've now released, I think, 6 variant covers. And now they sell out every time, right? Because it's very popular. And so it's good for business. But meanwhile, those of us who are over here with issue 1 that we got in issue 1 2 years ago, we're like, we don't want another variant cover. We want the next issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, so you can overkill, because like on my Kickstarters, I have a variant cover level, but that's the only variant cover you're going to get, and it's just during the Kickstarter.
Right.
And then that's it, right? So like then we'll move on to the next issue. So they both come out at the same time. Boom. And that's it.
Right.
It's like Avatar. Re-releasing it, on Blu-ray and 4K.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Ultimate
eventually
edition.
it gets a little ridiculous after a certain amount of time. But no, I think that stuff is necessary. You just got to know where the line is.
Well, it's business. I mean, there is business, but at the same time, you want people to come back for your story, not just the gimmick, because the gimmick, they're not going to every time. If you look at your favorite stories, your favorite movie, your favorite comic, you're going back to look at the characters. You look at the artwork, but at the same time, it is such just an incredible kick to understand why is Johnny Storm fighting with Ben Grimm. I mean, those relationships, go back, and that's what I discovered. I mean, again, I am one of those guys that pulled that 10 cents or that 12 cents comic out, and I still have them. So those are the things, but you remember that, and that's what you enjoy. You go people. You could do plot. You have to have a solid plot, but people come back for the character, and it's not just a quirky personality. What is it that they're trying to overcome?
Right.
Those are the things, and it's not just overcome a thing. It is what is the goal, personal goal.
Yeah.
How do they challenge? How do they grow?
Yeah. In many cases, it's overcoming themselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and that's something that I think that we have such an ability and to be able, as independent artists with Kickstarters, with crowdfunding, to be able to grow. I'm not talking about thousands of readers, because until such a circumstance occurs where you can have, you have to turn it into a business, and then you no longer can put your personal energy into that.
Yeah. When it gets to a certain amount of people, then it's more corporate at that point. And like, no, I agree with you. We talked about that on the Dingoes podcast before. Is just the importance of cultivating a community of readers versus just trying to reach as many people as possible.
Right.
And I think you're absolutely right, John. With Kickstarter, Indiegogo, stuff like that, we are now as creators able to do just that. We don't have to just please the masses. We can be like, hey, you 1,000 people or so, or less, most of us, it's less, you few hundred, come over here. Let's enjoy this thing together and tell our friends, and whoever wants to stay can stick around, and we'll do this.
Right.
Versus just trying to get more and more and more and more out. Cause I think the story in the long run can and often does suffer.
Yeah. And I think with the crowdfunding, the actually they're coming for you as the creator, because you're speaking to them. I mean, it's kind of, there others have said that this is kind of like the we are not the we're not Dunkin' Donuts, your bakery. You're the little corner shop that does a particular style with your own special handling, and it's your personality, and it's talking to the person behind the counter, and then every now and then, the baker comes from back, dusting his hands and says, "Okay, what did you like? What'd you think about that last batch?"
Yeah, man, John, now I want donuts. Dang it! No, you're absolutely right, though. It is that small, mom and pop shop feel that you get with this type of environment with the Kickstarter and Indiegogo crowdfunding versus the, like kind of the Walmart, Amazon.com big corporate company feel that you would get with with larger, DC Marvel titles and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a big reason why I miss conventions, because you have the opportunity to interact with so many people. I mean, you could do that on social media for sure, but the face-to-face contact with people where they can actually look at your work and interact with you, when we were doing conventions, that was a big way for me to grow an audience, was able to, meet people face-to-face, and it's like you said, John, they often buy into you as a creator. Because they see what kind of person you are, and they see what kind of work you're putting out, and that's what they like. So, I mean, and the story as well, obviously. So,
well, but I think, go ahead, John.
Sorry, I was going to say it all, and as long as you're not insulting, as long as you respect the reader, and not insult them.
Yeah,
for sure.
Personally.
Yeah, I know. Like JD. Well, and I would even add, like, even in the story, because JD said something to me a couple weeks ago, because he backed Memoirs of an Angel, and he told me, he was like, "Hey, I actually like this story. Don't screw it up." and so, but on some, and he was joking, kind of, but like on some level, the reader is trusting you, especially if you have an extended series. If that reader is, and that's with any story, right? Like, I think Game of Thrones was a major scale, right? But like, if you look at that was a huge hit. Everyone watched that show, and then the last season let so many people down. And it comes to, essentially there were other distractions that the creators were dealing with, and they kind of rushed it. And these people had trusted them to tell them a good story, and in the end, they let them down. So I think on a personal level, you don't want to insult people. You don't, but even in a storytelling way, you want to respect the reader, and you want to respect the time that they've given us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the thing.
It's like there's more accountability.
Yeah.
On the smaller scale, if somebody can come up to you at a convention and be like, "Hey, Chad, you really effed up. Like, this last issue was weak. You need to work on it."
Oh, I'm jumping over the table at that point.
Chad's like, "What do you mean?" No.
You know what I'm saying? I think, like, for a big, if you were at like Marvel or something, there's so much distance that one person being frustrated with one thing, like, that doesn't matter. As long as you just like, smooth it enough to where it's like mass appeal, you don't really have to concern yourself with the, one or two people that are, that may be there to like push you. That person may have said, "Hey, this is weak."
Yeah.
But maybe it was weak. Maybe you were distracted, and maybe you take that as motivation to push the story for further better. You know what I think? I think on that scale, the small scale, like, maybe that pushes you more as an artist, whereas somebody working for a big company, they figure out their, like, whatever they have to do to sell comics, and they're not pushing themselves as an artist or as a script writer, or whatever your job is. Maybe the small scale, that accountability is better.
Yeah. Well, I think with in terms of the scale, actually, I guess it was what was it? Peter Samedi. I mean, looking at these various aspects of what actual readership, what are sold. Okay, how many copies does he sell versus what is ordered at the local comic book shop? Sometimes the numbers, he sold more direct than what is ordered with some of the, and those are not sale throughs. They're just what was ordered and delivered to the various shops. So you don't really know how many people, what the true readership is,
right?
And so with crowdfunding, it's a true, that they got to really be wanting to support the title, to give you, your, in my case, it was $10 for the 52-page book, those 2 episodes, and $7 shipping. So you must really, be expecting a lot out of me.
Right.
So
I'll let you know how it holds up.
yeah, okay. Well, I got to tell you, episode 3 has already been, 23 pages. I've got a 7-page 1717 Club as the backup feature, plus another 12 or so pages for episode 4 of it. So that'll be another 52-page book there. Right. It's all the story keeps on going. Think of it as and I treat all these things as though they were the Sunday funnies back in the day. Where you knew the characters, they didn't quite finish, but they're going to carry on.
Yeah, for sure. So with that, so your vision is kind of just ongoing. You're going to do this however long people buy it.
Yeah, until you wake up one morning and discover on the Lexington Herald that they found me at lying across my drawing board, and they say, well, who was this man?
Certainly not, man. We will definitely, it will be more great than that. There will be women weeping in the streets and all that.
Yeah, no, there is so much story to tell. You see, here, if you're talking about the characters and the search for this character to find out, I mean, your story ends when you die, you personally. Right. Yeah, and if you think of your characters as human beings, they'll have a beginning, middle, and end to a story, but then they carry on. I mean, unless of course, you're the most uninteresting person in the world, then there's not much to write about you.
Right, yeah. No, yeah, that's interesting. I know that for me, like, I thought about doing more of an ongoing series with Memoirs, but from the get-go, it was very much a beginning, middle, and end. And especially, dealing with bigger topics like, that you find in Revelation, like the end times and things like that. So that's very much wrapped up into this story. So that's why for me, like, it's an extended series. It's going to be about 40-45 issues when it's all done.
That's longer than so many. I mean, you're going to be 70 by the time you're done.
That's funny. It's that's why starting this year, we're starting to put out quarterly instead of once a year. Because I said the exact words to my wife. I was like, if we keep doing once a year, I'm going to be in my 70s or 80s before this thing's done, and I want to do other stuff.
Hey, listen, don't knock being 71.
Oh no, not at all.
That's exactly what he's doing. That's exactly what he's doing.
Well, don't disrespect me. I'm just starting with with issue 1 of my Bloodwing. I think I can go until I'm 100.
Here's the thing, John. Here's the thing, John.
Don't listen to
look,
Chad.
Brian's going to keep talking here, but let me say something real quick. I just want you to know, John, that with age comes wisdom, and I could just tell that you are just.
I'm a wise guy.
Yeah, that's what I could.
Hey,
I could just.
Chad, you got something right here, buddy. No. No, what I'm saying though is, when I am 70, I want to start an issue 1 of something that I have on the back burner. So to get through this series before I can get to that point is very crucial for me.
Yeah,
I've got about 10 other ideas that I want to actually do before I die.
I have like such a short attention span. The idea of taking like 40 years to make a comic, I can't even wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
Man. Oh well, how long did Chris Claremont do X-Men? What was it, 20 years?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
basically, like that.
Well, you look at it. You go on, and I mean, you can, as long as you have if you have a free hand in creating stuff, that's one thing. But it starts getting, it atrophies as soon as bean counters start, messing with you. The expectations of what you're doing, they don't give you the freedom, but you have to have the talent and the taste to be able to do it. And sometimes they say we want to go in a different direction because we really screwed up and we don't know what we're doing, but we want to go there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's some. I mean, look at how many people have been kicked out of various businesses, and you know, just because they're not the age demographic.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's the one thing I love about being indie creator, and I know we're joking about it, but that my story will be going when I'm in my 80s, and I think basically it does take me a long time to do each issue, so it is about a year for every book for me. But that's why I love being an indie creator, is because you don't have to worry about someone telling you, hey, we're going to change directions, or we don't like what you're doing here. And I'm thinking more in terms of, you know, like with what Jeremy's saying, you know, 40 years on a book, that seems like crazy. You know, I'm thinking more like future generations. Like once I'm done with this book, then my grandkids can just take them all together and read them. You know, they're not, I don't expect someone to follow me for 40 years while I'm doing this drawings and doing these books. I'd love that, but I'm thinking more long-term, which is also, you know, kind of my marketing strategy. Like I'm not really worried if I gain a following or if I'm successful with the Kickstarters. I'm still going to put them out, and because I know it's a good story, and I know someone will like it, whether it's just one person or 100 people, it doesn't matter. You know, I think that's true freedom. You know, it's you know, people often, I remember when I was younger, I remember the dream was to work for Marvel and DC. But the older you get, and you hear the stories of people being like I remember one time, I forget, he was on Batman with Scott Snyder. I forget Greg Capullo was talking about, he had a post on Twitter or something, and it was a picture of him just laying there, and he's like, I just worked like 30 days straight, 13 hours a day or whatever. And I'm like, that sounds like hell. That doesn't sound like an awesome job. Like that's horrible. And the idea of getting sucked into that machine, it sounds awesome at first because you go to the convention, everyone's like, oh, the big artist is here, the big writer is here or whatever. But I think the reality of it, like when you get down to it, I'd much rather have the freedom to write and draw my own stories as an indie creator for sure. So,
and I think that's I would like to have, I have a goal, and it's just you know, like I'm hoping to be able to get, you know, eventually a solid 100 followers who are into the story. That way, it's not just, you know, a group. I want to be able to speak to more than just, I want to speak to both males and female readers. You know, that's one of the things that I think is so missing in today's comics, because, I mean, you know, look at it this way. I mean, this is what they want. Kickstarter and Indiegogo, tremendously TNA, you know, imagery. I mean, basically that's what it's selling. You know, I mean, I don't know the stories and whatnot, but it's so it flashes so much like that to me, and that's what's selling. So it's like the same thing with comic book shops. If independent comics Kickstarters only seem to be catering to one type of person, then you're not going to grow. I mean, you know, I mean, I know that some of these campaigns are getting, and you know, this is what they're raising money, but sometimes you'll see 3 or 4 people have spent $150 each, or maybe $200 each, and that's half of the budget. You know, that they're raising that amount, so that's not really readership. You know, it's making their project work. You know, they're getting to that. But then I see a lot of things that are like, you know, $20,000, and it's like, I don't, you know, it's just not me. But then I'm not as young as, you know, I'm past that point in terms of it's not my interests and whatnot. So I want a good solid story, you know, and that's what I think. I want solid artwork too. But again, what is it? I mean, I'm not going to. I mean, who am I to tell somebody not to do mature material? I mean, my angel is, you know, is naked, you know, basically, you know. but there's a metaphor to that because it's born. The character is it gets into a hole and has to dig yourself out. And when you land, and you're burned, you don't have an actual toga. You're
Right,
you're the Terminator that lands on Earth, naked.
Yeah,
You got to go find clothing somehow.
Yeah. There's a big difference between like just being graphic to be graphic versus it's part of the meaning of the character. That's very different. And I think what you're pointing to is the amount of projects that just use it as a graphic selling point rather than as a point of the story.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, for me, I just keep reminding myself that we're still talking about Shakespeare, Leonardo da Vinci, all those guys. But the ones that come and just sell it for sex or whatever, you're not going to be talking about them in 50 years. So I try to keep that in my mind, because for me, it is very tempting to get frustrated or disheartened to see someone be successful using, it seems like, cheap tactics in my opinion. But instead of getting frustrated with them or focusing on them, I just think, no, I need to put a story out that is more timeless, that will live beyond me. And I think it's a good way around it. So.
And I think, similarly, as of right now, I think there's only one panel in my series that has even close to some nudity in it.
Yes.
But it's a mural of Chad.
Awesome.
But my thing is violence and horror-based violence specifically. Right. It's not there just for the gross out effect, like the 80s horror movies, like the Friday the 13th stuff.
Right.
No, it has a purpose. It has a reason. Earlier I said, it's there because I want to show you just how gnarly and nasty evil actually is. So to do that well, you have to bring those boundaries into the mature reader realm to get that point across. So, I think, I totally
agree with you. The actions serve the story. It's not a justification for it if it is necessary to show or have it happen, then do it. Don't worry about it. Don't be so North American. There's a European attitude about comics, which is the story is there. The graphics are there because it's necessary. Go with that. Allow it to happen. Do it. That's why I don't think my Snuffy and Zoe and Mega Moose comics will probably would do okay, with in conventions, but I don't think Bloodwing would, there'd be too many people saying, wait a minute, this should be in a brown wrapper,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you'd be surprised. My comics are, because they look more animation driven. I get a lot of kids that are very interested in it. And unfortunately, depending on the age of the kid, I'm going to be honest with the parents. They'll be like, you probably want to wait a couple years.
Yeah.
But we have like bookmarks and stuff of the characters so that the kids can have that. But no, I mean, it is kind of amazing just how the comic book industry in general, where it is still, and I think it always will be, a lot of it is there for kids, but there's a lot of it there now for adults because we all grew up on comics now. So all of us who are in our 30s, 40s, 50s and up, we grew up in comics. So now we still want it, but we want stuff that we want to read.
Right.
And so I think that is a whole new world now in the last 20 years than it was before.
It's going to be interesting to see how these Kickstarters and Indiegogo campaigns do after this initial pandemic year. And we'll see what does occur. I'm really happy to. Let's hear. Let's see here. Let's show this one here. There's Warzard, the board Time Lord. North America is one of the only places comics do sell tons. France and Japan have huge markets.
He actually,
yeah,
I was gonna say,
yeah.
corrected
Don't
himself.
sell.
Don't sell. Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's I mean, if you look at Japan though, like Japan's steeped in the manga culture and has been for so long, much more than North America has. I mean, we're just now in the last 10 years or so, because of the Marvel movies and things like that. Now we're steeped in it. Japan is light years ahead of us when it comes to that.
But that's all. But you see, they've always been that way because of the even their kabuki theater is very comic booky.
Yeah,
It's very graphic oriented. They accept things differently than what we do. For some reason, comics, became a four-letter word in the 50s.
Yeah,
with the book burnings, basically.
Yes.
We I mean, here. Okay, once again, we can get back to a little bit. A lot of that is driven by fear. Saying, well, you know what? You do have to allow yourself to express yourself. It's when a society makes things taboo without a reason for it, or doesn't know how to grow into it. That's when things suddenly, binges go.
Yeah.
I mean, as an Italian, my mom and my dad was always just, as a little boy, saying, have a little wine, put a little 7-Up in it or what have you, and learn. It's good for you. Take it. Yeah. I'm 11 years old, and 12 years old. They're giving me a little shot of whiskey for New Year's. Happy New Year, midnight. Take your shot. Learn how to handle it.
Yeah,
there's part of the culture.
Oh, it's perfect. I actually shared a really good article yesterday or a day or two ago on Facebook about this very thing. Is introduce fear in healthy ways to kids, like the old grim fairy tales, not the Disney watered down stuff, but the original, those types of fairy tales, and I think even like a healthy dose of the horror genre as well. I grew up on books like the Scary Stories You Tell in the Dark. There were tons of libraries that weren't allowed to sell or have those books in them. Schools banned them. I grew up on them, and I did not do well with horror when I was a young child, but because of that and Goosebumps, those books and like Dracula, the Tomb of Dracula Marvel comic, those really introduced me to fear in a healthy way, and that way when I was an adult, I'm able to take a lot of things, unlike Chad, who cannot watch a scary movie to save his life.
I've seen some scary movies. I just don't. My mind just goes wild after it, and I don't like the aftermath of the movie. I don't mind the movie itself. Yeah. It's afterwards thinking. That's my problem. Is just shutting my brain down. So basically, what needs to happen is I need to watch a horror movie and then just drug myself up with something, so I just can't think about it afterwards.
Like John said, just have a little wine with some 7-Up in it. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. If you want to introduce nudity into just a normal thing, look at the Edgar Rice Burroughs books. The Warlord of Mars. John Connor, Princess of Mars.
Yeah.
This is like this is 1911, 1914. These are your regular magazine, serials, and they are, Tarzan is nude. Tarzan's having the hots for one, a female gorilla. You've got you see all of the Martians are all naked except for whatever leather straps they're wearing for the harnesses and whatnot. And to describe that way, and it's not a matter of like a whiffed a whiffy hair that flows across, or an angel's wing that is deftly placed in front of, one of the 6 wings that some of them have, and they're all like this.
Yeah, just strategically placed
Yes,
across.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. But again, once again, you have to allow, once you deny the naturalness of something, you create a problem in your mind because you're saying what you are questioning is not natural. And so I think you need to be able to look at things for what they are. I mean, Peter said, you can eat everything, and so it's not a matter of the law and everything in moderation. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, and I would add to that, it's also good, I would say I'm not a parent as of right now, but I think it's good to introduce kids to these heavier topics, but be there with them to talk them through it, like your parents did with the wine, right? And the shot. They were there. They were there to show you what it is, explain everything about it, not to introduce fear to it, but to say, hey, okay, this is what you can have. This is what this thing is. This is what it's about. And this is the line that you don't cross.
Yeah.
I had
Go ahead. No, I was done.
That was a conversation I had with my dad on a New Year's Eve. I think I might have been 11 years old, and I was sipping my little shot. And I said to my dad, how come you don't get drunk? And we were in a party. It was a party. These apartment. Growing in Brooklyn, everybody we had apartment buildings, and I was it was a 3-room apartment. A kitchen, living room, and 2 little bedrooms, and 1 bathroom, and closet, whatnot. But everybody would come in. We'd be all bang the pots and pans. We're talking about 1959, 1960, or whatnot. And so sometimes I would see 1 or 2 of our relatives get a little tipsy, and I said, Dad, how come you don't get drunk? He says, I just don't like to lose control.
Yeah.
And that was right there and then. That was his reason. I didn't question it. He said, yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah. It wasn't a matter. It was a child asking a simple question, and I don't know if it would have had, if I had to. There are some times where I think about it, and it's just, there are things that we did that were not allowed to do anymore. I was a latchkey kid because my folks had worked, and then I'm going to grammar school and and whatnot. It took us a while to get to the parish and then come back, and then so we had our key to get into the apartment. Then my mom would be home about an hour or a half hour later because she had a job that was another part of the neighborhood, but she knew enough to be able to trust us. When you're 11,
right,
12 years old, 12 years old, kids started to be babysitters. Back in those days. And so I think what's happened is that people don't get out of their puppy stage quickly enough.
Brian
so
and
I'm just saying, I know things are different, but we still had to deal with crime and things and what have you. I mean, it is a different time, but the attitude isn't kind of like again, come back to one of the things we're talking about, fear. The fear of what's going to happen, and that keeps you from exploring and being able to do things. So I don't know.
Yeah, Brian and I did an episode on the show Stranger Things, and we talked about that a lot. Like that show, because I was that age in the 80s, really resonated with me, and the fact that they just like went wherever they wanted to. And I remember as a kid, like wherever I could walk to in enough time to be able to walk
or ride
back,
your bike.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Before dark, that was my kingdom, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now, kids don't deal with that sort of stuff now. There are kids that call an Uber on their phone. They want to go. So, like, they don't have to navigate those things. Like, have I gone too far? Am I in a dangerous situation? They just don't make those decisions. And so, I think that affects.
And I think with that though, like, I mean, there are times that are better than others, but I don't really like to think of things as the good old days, because I
No,
think
Right.
that we every generation brings, like you said, John, very different things that you need to address and approach. Because like nowadays, we know more about child abduction. We
Mhm.
know more about those things. Whereas in the 80s and the 70s, it was kind of coming up, but there wasn't a whole lot of attention on it. So the fact that more kids were able to go out, but a lot more kids were abducted too. I mean, that's a part of it. Versus now, I think in some cases we have overcorrections, just like in every situation. But you've still got, I mean, my neighborhood that I live in, we're a huge, subdivision, and we have kids that riding around, hanging out together, just like I did when I was a kid. But not every kid's like that. Some kids apparently call Ubers. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I'm an 8-year-old. I have now
Well,
that
not an 8-year-old. That's
okay.
that's a
Hopefully not. Yep.
stretch. Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I identify with everything you guys are saying, because I've got 4 kids from 9 to 13. And when I was that age, it was the same thing. Like, I remember my elementary school being quite far away, but we would walk there or ride our bikes to school. And nowadays, like, and maybe it is fear-based, but I don't like my kids just kind of walking around the neighborhood, because I have no idea. You hear all these stories of like, oh yeah, they would just live down the street and then they were operating a sex ring or something, like some crazy stuff that happens, which I'm sure was still there when we were kids, but now it's just so like public. You it seems like you hear more of it. And so, and for us, it's a little bit different because 2 of our kids are autistic. So we're a little more hesitant to let them, kind of go, because they don't understand social boundaries and danger and that kind of thing. But either way, I still would be hesitant with letting my 9-year-old, who's more typical, like, just, oh yeah, I'm gonna, just gonna go ride my bike somewhere. Like, no, you're not. Like, let me tag you so I know where you're going. And I don't know how much of that is fear and how much of that is wisdom. I'm always wrestling with that.
Well, I think a lot of that is the good and bad of our time with the technology, right? Like, we have the ability now to know what happens all over the world all the time with social media and 24-hour news channels and all that. So those comes with good things, but also the negative too, which is the constant fear, oh gosh, this is happening everywhere, when it's not really. It's that you just know more about it than you did before.
Yeah, and we're all connected to all these. The fact of the matter, here we are. We're about 90 miles from each other,
Right.
and here we're having a conversation, and we're just getting, we're looking at. Let's see, what have you got in your room there? Don't forget to turn the camera off. But the thing is that because we have so much information, we think it's in our backyard.
Right.
And so therefore we're constantly bombarded by that. And turn off the TV. I mean, think about, there's, you don't, the constant stimulation and aggravation, that comes from always being connected.
Yeah.
And
we weren't designed for that.
I know.
As people at all.
Yeah.
We weren't designed to constantly intake information all the time. But we have gotten to a place where that's the norm.
I know.
So,
So it's just, but it's norm as it may be. I think we can handle. We can mitigate it in some way by just, understanding what it is that we got to deal with.
Right.
Again, a lot of this stuff is Brave New World in 1984. I mean, that's just look at all that. You've got all that stuff. You've got the screens. You've got the constant stimulation, and you're talking something from 70 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, but I think we've hit. It's almost 9 o'clock. We've had an hour and a half going here.
Having a good time.
Yeah. Well, you know what? How about if we, we've shown that we have some dirty faces in our angels, and our best intentions, and I think we're, there's so much to talk about, but maybe now's the time good to kind of see what happens and then just pull back a little bit, and maybe we get together and do another gathering if you're up to that.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Awesome. And we would we've got you on the books to come on for the Dastardly Dingoes next month.
Okay.
We'll definitely. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship.
You're right.
Yep.
Thank you so much for having us on, though. This has been a ton of fun.
Brian, Chad, Jeremy. I want to say Chad and Jeremy. I mean, it was a group.
The band. Oh, really? You guys need to actually listen to some of their music and try to do that.
Yeah,
I believe in you too. We'll have a whole episode dedicated to it.
Jeremy, we can high five.
No,
the other way.
There you
go. Come on.
Oh, there we go. Oh, dang it.
No.
There we go. Yeah. Me and Brian K. Morris did more than high five like that a couple weeks ago on Clever Title Pending, his show.
Oh, geez. Listen, it's in the back room. Back in the green room.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh man.
Well, guys, it was a pleasure talking to you. I mean, you and I have spoken, Brian, just once or twice, I think, right?
Yeah.
Jeremy, we haven't, and I don't think we did. Chad, have we been on the same show?
I've not met you before.
Okay.
I've never met you, sir.
I've never met you. Who are you? What are we doing?
We all joke around that Chad has just the stoic, emotionless face, and he's probably a serial killer. So yeah.
Uh-oh. Yes. All right.
I've adopted.
Now you're making me afraid to let him know where I live.
Yeah, don't do it.
I already know where you live. Based on what I can see in your room.
That's all he needs.
That's all I need to know.
Oh yeah. If you're looking at let's see, where can I get move? Okay, yeah. You see where my finger that drawing?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's Wayne Boring Superman.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Well, I worked with him
at
Tubby the Tuba.
All right.
Cool.
At New York Institute of Technology. That was my first job, and he was doing layouts, and I was saying, "Oh, geez," I said, "Is this Wayne Boring?" I knew the style. I looked the style, and I was in betweening some stuff. I go, "This looks familiar. Is this the same Wayne Boring? He can't be." Superman was like, "Oh," and that was my first introduction to. Comic book artists are just ordinary people. And, it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
So it was just, and the only reason I got that drawing is he gave it to me on his last day because I was the only one who didn't bother him about getting a Superman drawing. So
he rewarded you.
He said,
"Thank you for not bothering me."
He said, "Danny boy, here." He had a desk with a big, old-fashioned blotter. And this is 1975.
Right.
He lifted up and he says, "Here, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Awesome.
I did this for you, Johnny."
That's awesome, man.
That's great.
Guys, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to talking to you again. And this will be on, as a recording, on YouTube.
In perpetuity.
When it gets through its machinations and what have you. So it's for posterity. So remember that I didn't show anybody from the waist down. So if you're not wearing, if you're wearing your jammies, don't worry about it. Or shorts or what have you.
Yeah.
We're looking at you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody else, and guys, thanks for showing up in the chat.
Yeah.
Did we miss anybody here? Because I know some of you guys know some of these people, like Wazard. You know him, the wizard, the board Time Lord. You know him?
Oh no, I was just chatting. Just to carry on a conversation.
Okay. Well,
Jeremy likes to make friends.
I try.
Well, guys, thank you very so much, and I'm just going to say goodbye, and to all those who are watching in another 2 or 3 years on this.
There you go.
Right. Hello,
in 2 or 3 years. Look us up. Yeah.
Say goodbye. Good night, everybody. Good
Good night, everybody. Yeah.